Where's your umbrella? Where is your umbrella? There are experiences in life that I look back on. And one of them that stands out for me was years ago when I was in seminary. And I got assigned to work at a particular church as an assistant minister there. And through some things that happened, the minister didn't know anything about my coming. And he was surprised when I got there, and I was surprised later to find out that he didn't know. But rather than him telling me that he didn't know that I was coming, he kind of made things difficult for me. And every time I would come around, he would go into the silent mode. He wouldn't say a whole lot to me. When we would be in Bible study or other things, and I would raise my hand and he'd look over. Are there any other questions? Anybody else have anything? And I'm sitting right there with my hand up. And so one day, I decided I needed to find out what's going on. And so I knew that the parsonage for that church was right on the parking lot. And so I knew he would be there that day, so I drove out. And of course, he was surprised to see me then. And I said, we need to talk. And we sat down and we talked. And that's when he shared with me that he didn't know that I was coming. And he felt like somehow I had imposed myself on him. And I said, well, you know, this couldn't happen without being assigned and all of those things. And so we got things together and we smoothed that relationship over. And from that relationship, though, there was a story, it's a teaching story that I like to use a lot, that I learned from him. Because I remember after we had kind of settled things, I heard him tell this story, and it's remained with me, and there are different parts and elements, and I play with it over and over again in my mind, and I've used it here, I've used it in many different places, but it speaks to me. And it's the story about a town that had been without rain for a very long time. It was dry and dusty for them. They were experiencing a drought like nothing they'd seen before. And so they became desperate. And they started to get together and gather and come up with ideas. We need to find some way to make it rain. So they would get together, and as they talked about the thing, somebody said, well, you know, every time I would plan to do some big activity outside, guess what would happen? It would rain. So they got together, they planned this big town-wide picnic, and they were really looking forward to the picnic, but they were looking forward to the picnic not so much because of the picnic, but because, you know, when they made big plans like that in the past, it would rain. They had the picnic, they had a great time, they enjoyed one another, they had good food and all of that, but no rain. Got even drier and got to the point where the creek dried up. You know, it had to be a small town, it was a creek and not a creek. And so they said, well, you know, somebody else said, well, I have, oftentimes when I would wash my car, it would rain right after I washed my car. So they all got together, washed their cars at the same time, just knowing that after that it was going to rain, and the cars looked good. No rain. They tried one thing after another thing to try and make it rain, but it didn't rain. So finally somebody said, let's try prayer. Yes, yes. And they said, we're not just going to pray, we're going to get the 3 best prayer warriors in town to pray. And they're going to go down and march down to the church, and we're all going to cheer them on, and they're going to go into church, and they're going to pray. They're going to pray these powerful prayers. And from that, we know that after these prayers, we're going to get rain. So they lined up the main street, and the church was at the end of the main street, and they lined up there, and down that street walked the 3 prayer warriors making their way to the church to pray for rain. And as they were walking and the people were cheering them on and praising and all of that, everything, they were proud that the prayer warrior was going to take the charge. There was a little girl that was standing next to her mother in the crowd. And she looked at the prayer warriors that were walking down. She said, "Mama, are those the 3 people that are going to pray for us, that are going to pray for rain?" She said, "Yes, baby, yes, they are." She said, "Well, they're the prayer warriors, right?" She said, "Yes. They're going to pray and it's going to be rain because they have a powerful way of praying and all of that." She said, "Yes, baby." And she said, "All 3 of them?" "Yes." She said, "Well, why is only one of them carrying an umbrella?" And I always think of that story. And I'll ask the question, where is your umbrella? Because these were the people that were going to use the tools that they talk about in order to bring about a change. And yet only one had the faith that what she was going to do was going to produce the desired result. Where's your umbrella? And there are just 3 things that for me are important right now. I have a whole lot of ways that I take this story and spin it this way or that way, but this morning for this particular Sunday, I've got 3 things and then I'll be through. Yeah, the preacher says that. But anyway, the first is application. Application. Applying what we profess to believe to everyday life. It's important that we learn how to apply those things. I know that there was just recently a period of time where all of these morning routines that people were following and advising one another and all of that to follow. There were morning routines I had described here. Somebody would hear me talk about a morning routine, and then they would come and say, "Well, here's another one," and they send me a YouTube video, or they send me an email or a clip, or they tell me something, or they bring me a piece of paper about their particular morning routine. All of these things happening that involve morning routines and all of that. And finally, as I looked at this one, and I looked at that one, and this one seemed familiar, and that one had elements of this one, and all of the things that were happening there. And when I looked at it, I finally decided to ask myself the question, which one of these works? Some say start out the morning with a word of gratitude, a word of thank you. Some say start out your day with prayer or meditation. Some say start out your day with writing out a list of things you wish to manifest that day. Others say write a letter to your spiritual guide or your spiritual CEO. All of those things. But which one of those works? The one which you use. They're all very similar. It's about consciously starting the day. And so when you get down to it, whether it's with starting with prayer, with meditation, with affirmations, with the list, with the letter, it doesn't really matter. It's the one that you use that ultimately makes the difference. It's about application. And you know, those of us in New Thought, metaphysics, New Thought, ancient wisdom, we are eternal students. We're always finding a new book, a new technique, a new guru, a new study, a new this, a new that. We're constantly, I mean, you know, I have a book, well now, because we have electronic books, I have a Kindle, an ebook reader that is full of books. I still have boxes in my attic that are full of books, most of them saying the same thing, just in a slightly different way. And it's really not all of those. I could take all of those tomorrow, and I actually have done so, and give them away. And it would not change the fact that if I don't use what is in them, if I don't apply these things, it will make no difference at all. It's about applying, application. And the one who recognized that it's about application was the one with the umbrella. The second element of this story for me is about congruence. Congruence. Letting our actions and our and our thoughts to line up. Because it's very easy to say one thing and do another. We can spend that morning devotion lining things up, and the rest of the day destroying it by the negative talk, the negative thoughts, the atmosphere that pulls from us and doesn't give us life, doesn't fulfill us if we are not careful about that. One of the things that we're talking about and studying and exploring in the book right now, Shortcut to a Miracle, is about the fact that when we talk about this whole co-creative process, that we have our conscious mind, the conscious mind that we talk, and it produces the thoughts that we have and the planning and all of those things. And then we have our subjective mind. And it's one mind, but it's the particular elements or characteristics or way of functioning. We have our subjective mind that is basically that place within us that whatever we place into the subjective mind takes it and operates on it and moves with it. So if you're constantly walking around talking about those folks at work make me sick, they make me sick, they get on my nerves, guess what's going to happen? Subjective mind doesn't judge, doesn't distinguish. It takes what we put into it and acts upon it. So if this person or that situation makes you sick, guess what? You're sick. Get on your nerves, got all kinds of things happening. How we say things, the subjective mind doesn't know whether we are joking. It doesn't know whether we are living in a fantasy world. It just simply begins taking those things and acting on those things because it's connected with what we talk about when we talk about the creative medium in the universe. If you hear oftentimes us praying, one of the things we will say in prayer is after we've set our intention and after we've done our place where we say what it is that we wish to experience, and we talk about releasing it into the creative medium. The creative medium is that which takes that place in which we have found within ourselves and takes it and it acts on it. It's what's a part of that co-creative process. So if we are not careful, we will talk one way and talk one thing, but really what we think is a totally different thing. You know how you will see a person and you will say, "Oh, how are you today?" That person will say, "I'm doing well. I'm so glad to see you." Incongruence. Being congruent with what it is that we say. Be congruent. That's one of the things that's important for us to see and to go from those ways. Lazora talked about it in us connecting with our five senses, being able to connect with the sixth sense. And as we continue to be consistent with that, as we continue to apply those things and to be congruent. And yes, there are times when, yes, there are people that get on our nerves. There are people that make us sick and all of those things. Well, we can take that and turn that into a positive way in which we begin to understand. You know, people, I used to get on one of my cousins all the time who used to post on social media early in the morning, "Good morning, haters." And I don't think I would want to start my day off addressing haters. That's just going to bring more of them. And then when I would talk to her later, some of the stuff she was dealing with, it was because of those haters. I said, well, have you ever thought about that rather than greeting your haters, maybe there's some other people in your life that you can express gratitude for, that you can be thankful for, that you give expression for them. You have two lovely daughters and a husband that you're crazy about. You've got a sister that you love, a mother that is there for you. All of those things. How about starting out your day being thankful for them? How about starting out your day and expressing all of that for them? Maybe then, as you do that, maybe the haters will go away. As a matter of fact, I think they probably will. As a matter of fact, some of your haters may discover that they're just confused friends. And once you start to focus on the positive, they'll get over their confusion and they'll be joining you and with greeting the day and being thankful for all of those days. And as she started to do that, and I would see her slipping, I said, no, as he continued to do that, things begin to change. So we have to be congruent with our actions, be congruent with that. People who are on weight loss journeys, for example, talk about all day about how they're on that journey and everything, but then they will, behind closed doors, has to be congruent. And the last element of the story that's important for me to share today, and I've got other days I'll share other things as part of it, is about expectation. Expectation. The one who was congruent had the umbrella. The one, again, who was that prayer warrior with the umbrella, had certain expectations. She already, in her mind, had said that I'm here to pray for rain. And as I do, I already know that out of my prayers, out of my treating, out of my affirming, the rain's going to happen. As a matter of fact, rain can't not happen because I already see it, I already feel it, I've got my umbrella and I see the rain is coming. Rain is here. I got to get prepared for it. I've got to do part of the thing when we talk about this co-creative process that we really have to understand and really have to get a hold of, because I talk about all the time being controlled by external circumstances. I talked about last week how we get into the world of cause and effect rather than causing effect, meaning we look at external things. But a part of this, the secret, it's not really a secret, but we sometimes obscure it and forget about it, is that before it ever manifests, before it ever happens, before it ever becomes evident, that we already feel it being a reality. We don't wait to see a lot of times, you talk about that money in the bank account earlier. Somebody had that on their card or something about the money or bank account and all of those things that are there. But before it ever gets there, already, if it were there, how would you feel? What kinds of ways would your life be enriched? You already begin to feel that before there's any evidence of it. That special person in your life, before they ever get there, before they ever even show up, how would you feel? What kind of day would it make for you to have that person in your life? How would you, some people get caught up, and she just made her transition, Della Reese, years ago when she was looking for a mate, looking for a husband. And one of the things Della did, and some people followed Della and they had similar success. Della had already started fixing a plate, setting at her table, and had his and her pillow on her bed, and had his and her towels in her bathroom, and everything waiting. Already said, I know that, when he gets here, he's going to enjoy these things, and we're going to sit down at the table, and we're going to do all these things. She did all of those things before he even came on the scene. And when he came, there it was. She was ready. It was already there. It's about expectation. Expecting it before we can see it. Expecting it. And more importantly, not just saying it, but feeling it. Because remember again, thoughts are the language of the mind, and feelings are the language of the body. And it's no accident that when in this teaching, when we talk about prayer, when we talk about that, not only do we say the words, but as Ernest Holmes taught about the fire in the belly, we feel it even before we see it. You remember in Hebrews 11:1, it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of the things not seen. Feel it. Allow it to express, manifest, and come forth. I love the story that Greg Braden, in his book, The Lost Secrets of Prayer, tells. It's not really a lost secret, but he's got to sell books. He talks about spending some time with a Native American elder And they had faced a similar situation as this town did. They hadn't had rain in a while. So he says to Greg, we're going to go to a place, it's a sacred place for our people, and it's a prayer circle. And if you can imagine, it's a circle that's marked out by stones that are in a circle, and there's a quadrant for the north, a quadrant for the south, a quadrant for the east, a quadrant for the west, and in the middle there's a smaller circle on which he went to stand. And then he closed his eyes for a minute, then he turned around and he said, Greg, let's go to lunch. Greg was waiting for this big, long ceremony and for him to do all of those things. And he said, but I thought you were going to pray for rain. He said, not quite, but that's why we came here, right? He said, yeah, so you're going to pray for rain? He said, oh, not quite. He said, I didn't pray for rain. I prayed rain. He said, you prayed rain? Yes, I prayed rain. He said, in that moment that I stood in the circle, I just imagined myself being drenched by the rain, that my dusty feet were now sloshing around in water, that the smell that carries in the wind when rain is falling down, that the sound of the water beating down on the ground, all of that. He said, I prayed rain, and in every fiber of my being, I felt rain. And I'm done. Didn't pray for rain, prayed rain. To feel it, to be it, to already act in it. Rain. And Greg says, as they went to lunch, he looked over. As they got out the car, Elder reached in the back seat of his car, pulled out his umbrella. They went inside, they sat down, and a few minutes later, rain. Where's your umbrella? Where's your umbrella? So it is.
This means you can fly.
is only one presence and one power in the universe, and that is God. And as each of us embodies all that we have learned today, we take it in, we make it our own, and we simply live from those very truths. We give thanks for all that have participated today. We give thanks for the lesson, the centering moment, the affirmative reading, the beautiful songstress, and just the beautiful energy that each and every person has brought into this space and into this place today. Moving forward, knowing that I got my umbrella with me. Yes, I apply everything that I believe and that I know. That I'm congruent. I let my thoughts and my actions line up. That I expect. That I am already prepared for whatever it is. Because I've got my umbrella. If I'm expecting rain, I got an umbrella, a raincoat, a rain hat, my galoshes, and a poncho. I got it all. Let it line up, knowing that it already is. So I release, and I let go, and I let God, and so it is.